بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم. سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم، ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم. Dr. Ahmad Farouk, President of Islamic Renaissance Front, Chairperson, committee members, my colleagues from International Islamic University, friends, brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Let me first express my gratitude to Dr. Farouk for inviting me to this launching of the 30th Juzu of Quran, translation of Muhammad Asad's The Message of Quran. I personally have also benefited a great deal from reading The Message of the Quran and also his other books mentioned by Dr. Farouk, namely Islam at a Crossroads. In my youthful years, I used to also be inspired by that book, and I still go back to that book to get some better understanding of the kind of relationship that Islam should have with the West. I think we need to look at some of the later chapters of his book when he talks of the necessity of maintaining the identity of Islam, and also following the Sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Of course, his study of the Quran is based upon very authoritative sources, the classical authorities from Al-Tabari right down to Sayyid Qutb, and also to the works of the Hadith, which he has found indispensable in understanding the Quran. He has used Bukhari, Muslim, and all the other authoritative collections of the Hadith to good purpose. In fact, when we discuss the issue of the allegorical verses in the Quran, and on the issue of Isra and Mi'raj, he was in favor of the view that the Isra was in fact undertaken spiritually, and of course he drew to the existence of two schools of thought. Of course, the majority subscribing to the view that it was bodily and spiritual, whereas the other school of thought, based on the authority of Aisha, Muawiyah, and also Al-Hasan al-Basri. And of course this is reported in Zamakhshari and also in Al-Tabari and Ibn Kathir, that just as Aisha radiallahu anha said that the Prophet bodily was there, it was his spirit, that it's his soul that undertook the Isra and the Mi'raj. What I'm trying to say here is, first, Muhammad Asad uses the authoritative classical sources very well, and I think we should follow his footsteps. And second, of course, he indicates his inclination towards a rational interpretation of the events in the prophetic life. And here, of course, he's also influenced by the views of Muhammad Abd, just as Dr. Farouk has also been inspired by the wisdom and the thoughts of Muhammad Abd. But I personally find that in understanding the Quran and what not to live the Quran, one should be benefiting from different dimensions of human understanding of the Quran. Muhammad Asad's understanding is one dimension, particularly emphasizing the rational. And for that, we're very grateful to him. He has done wonderful work. His scholarship is impeccable, and he has used the right sources, although he may come to conclusions that we might not necessarily agree. And Muhammad Abdu as well has contributed a great deal to the promotion of reformist Islam in Southeast Asia. But then again, Muhammad Abdu was also conditioned by his time, when science somehow became the most important advancement of human knowledge. And scholars after the time of Muhammad Abdu began to realize that this overemphasis on the rational needs to be balanced with a spiritual approach and understanding. And I believe that the integration of the rational and the spiritual is the right way to understand the Quran. And that is why I feel that when, of course, here in this page we put from the Quran, لِقَوْمٍ يَتَفَكَّرُونَ, untuk kaum yang berfikir, and translated by Muhammad Asad as for people who think. I feel that there is a need to go deeper into what is meant by القوم يتفكرون. Unfortunately, Muhammad Asad has not really explained in great detail what is meant by القوم يتفكرون. That phrase occurs about 6 times in the Quran, and he prefers to use the word for people who think. But if you look at other translations of the Quran, other commentaries, even the older commentaries of Al-Razi, of Al-Tabari, Ibn Kathir, Al-Qurtubi, and later on even Hamka, Abuya Hamka, we find that the understanding of لِقَوْمٍ يَتَفَكَّرُونَ is more profound and deeper than just to designate it as meaning people who think. And so I thought this is something that I should like to share with you this afternoon. Just like to read what I've written some time ago. This, the obligation of reflective thinking, like tafakkur, and I use the word reflective thinking, not just pure thinking. Like tafakkur, because yatafakkarun, the tafakkur is the noun, whereas the verb is yatafakkarun. And also bearing in mind or recollection, that tadakkur of Allah's messages. The Quran urges human beings in a variety of ways to engage in thinking and rational reflection on all matters, with the exception of the essence of Allah. And people who think, that is, or reflect, قَوْمٍ يَتَفَكَّرُونَ, is mentioned in the Quran favorably in connection with self-understanding and efforts to understand the laws of nature and its innumerable bounties as signs of Allah. لَآيَاتٍ لِقَوْمٍ يَتَفَكَّرُونَ. Sarkutur translates this to mean these are evidences of the power of Allah for people who reflect, rather than these are just signs of Allah. The whole of the universe, from the smallest to the biggest object, according to the Quran, are to be subjected to human thought, reflection, meditation, and contemplation. In fact, tafakkur involves a degree of contemplative thought. And our colleague and respected Professor Malik Badri has written a wonderful book on recollection, on tafakkur in Islam. And in that book he refers to a wonderful description or elaboration by Al-Ghazali rahimahullah on at-tafakkur, and how Al-Ghazali used the concept of at-tafakkur to look at animals in the universe, and particularly birds, and reflecting on this the symmetry of the flight of birds as ultimately being evidence of the power, the wisdom, the presence, the omniscience of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the universe. Ibn al-Qayyim in his Miftah Dar al-Sa'ada, the key to the abode of happiness, quoted one of the Salaf al-Salih who said, a reflection, I don't say a thinking, a reflection, tafakkur, for a certain period of time is better than 60 years of worship or ibadah without reflection, because without reflection is our addition. It is also said that, quote, a reflection, a tafakkur, for a certain period of time is better than one night vigil. And Umar bin Abdul Aziz radiallahu anhu is reported to have said that thinking about the bounties of Allah is one of the best forms of worship. Al-fikra fi ni'amillah min afdal al-ibadah. Ibn al-Qayyim, reflecting upon what Imam al-Ghazali wrote on al-tafakkur in his Ihya al-Din, explains that reflective thinking is the action of the heart, whereas today, perhaps people think it's the action of the brain. This is amal al-qalb. And here again, we come across a very, very important concept in Islam, that it is the key organ in man is the heart, is the qalb. There's no such thing as the intellect as a separate entity. In fact, intellection is the function of the heart. And so, in the Quran it says, لَهُمْ قُلُوبٌ لَا يَعْقِلُونَ بِهَا. They have hearts, but they don't think with their hearts. So in other words, hearts are supposed also to think, but thinking in a reflective, spiritual mode, not thinking in a purely sensual or materialistic mode. Then I'd like to share with you also the concept of ulul albab. Why is this concept important in understanding لِقَوْمٍ يَتَفَكَّرُونَ? Because reflection or thinking or contemplation use the aqal. And the aqal is the cognitive function of the qalb. And the qalb, the heart, is interpreted also in the Quran as the instrument by which you derive understanding and reflection.